So today we're going to try something a little bit different. We're going to do what we've been doing so far is we're going to start adding value to the figure. But we're going to start out just as how we always start out. We're going to find the joints. We're going to map the figure out. But what we're going to do after this is we're going to add value. So we want to start adding some value. And we're going to use white, which is going to be a little bit different, and I'll show you how to do that. So today, we're going to start out how we always start out. Okay, we're going to draw a line down the middle. Let's see, right about here is middle, right? We're going to draw a line across. Where should I draw it? Right about here. I think it's going to be across. Right? It's about middle. Well, close to middle. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we're going to have to figure out how large this head is going to be. How big is that head? It's about one head high above center. Okay? And it's about a half a head from here to here above. So if I draw a line above center, you know, I think I got this line a little bit too tall. Let's bring this down just a little bit. Boy, I am not straight there, am I? That's okay. You know, don't worry about if it's not perfect, but, you know, okay. So if I draw this line, and that is, yeah, I'm still a little high, but that's okay. We'll get this for it. So halfway, set higher, right? It's about halfway, close where I want it to be. Okay, so I need to decide, okay, wow, the center line is almost dividing this head in half, right? So I'm going to have the front part of the face here. I'm going to have the back of the head. Pretty close. But this head's tilted at an angle this way, and she's kind of got her head tilted this way. So it's going to be a little funny. So the center line is going to be tilted a little bit, and this chin sticks out further than what you think would be. So I think the chin is going to be somewhere here. So this chin's going to stick out almost as far as the forehead. And the funny thing about kids is their development is a little bit different. So you're not going to see the pronounced chin, you know, bone and muscle structure is still developing kids. So all that's going to be just a little bit different than it is with adults. Adults, you can really see how angular the joints are going to be. You know, in this figure, it's not too bad. You know, so we're going to run with it. So halfway is the eye, nose, forehead, thirds, pretty close. Okay, I might be a little tall for that head. I'm going to bring it down. And I'm going to go and draw some of the detail here. Now, I tell you guys never to draw the detail, but in this case, I might have to, so that eye is back a little bit. Right? And, okay. So that's looking pretty close to what we have here. This curves. Now this ear's at a little bit funny spot, okay? So, and that's because her head's tilted and she's kind of tilting her head away from us a little bit. And so this ear, you know, the head is tilted a little. It's funny, it's tilted like this. towards us. So the top of the head's going to be a little bigger. Some of these proportions are going to be a little bit different. So this ear, if I map this ear in, ooh, look at that, bottom of the ear, it's almost across from the bottom of the eye. Yeah, okay, top of the ear, wow, it's almost across from, where's that hair is kind of like this. Yeah, so I have that pretty close. And the ear, remember, it's just a half a heart shape. Now I added a lot of detail here just because I want to use this detail to measure off of, to measure some of these other parts. So where's the shoulder? Well, the shoulder starts right about where the mouth is. So if this is the mouth, so the shoulder is, okay, that lower lip is here. So that shoulder is right here. It's not down. She's kind of, with her head pointed towards you, she's kind of hunched a little bit. So I have to go with where the shoulder is relationship to the face. Okay? So that's the shoulder. Where's the back shoulder? Okay, this shoulder is a little taller than this one. Do you see the angle here? Just a little bit. And so how far over is it? I measure it from here to here. It's about the width of the face. So if I have the width of the face here, the back of the shoulders could be right about here. And I know that this top line comes off, right, of this ear here. I could add a little detail into that ear. So this shoulder is right about here. This one's here. Okay, so the shoulders are pretty easy to find since it's very close to the face. So we have right behind the ear, this line comes off. We have this line coming off right by the lower lip. Okay, so where are the elbows? So we're just mapping the figure out. So far we're just trying to map this out and we'll add value later. So these elbows are just above the center line, just a tiny bit, right? Somewhere in here, somewhere in here. And I'm just putting that in there lightly. And then this dot I have here is kind of right below the chin. So it's right here. And eventually, you're going to be able to do this visually. You won't need this grid. You won't need all this stuff. You're just going to look at it. You're going to make measurements in the air. And then you're going to look at your paper and you're going to start making relationships and measurements here. So I know this elbow's here. The width of that kind of comes off here, right? The width of this, just to make sure, is probably right here. So this going to give me about the width of the arms, and I'm guessing here, so I could put in some of, and this line just kind of comes up and curves over. So I'm just looking at the contour line, right? And this curves around. And she's got a little divot here from her clothing, so I can put that in and round those off. Okay, so that gives me a feel for where the shoulders are. How about the hip? Oh wow, the hip is right below that chin also, right about here. This hip you can't see. This hip is higher than this hip. The hip on this side is back here. She's sitting on it. So I'm more or less just worried about this hip. Sometimes if I just look at this shape here of this arm, I can draw this shape in. If I look at just this shape, so I'm always looking at shape. I'm not saying, girl, dress. I'm looking at shape. So I'm always thinking shape, line. Whenever a lot of times you guys do a lot of self-talking, and sometimes your self-talk is negative and it doesn't help you a bit. What you need to do when you have your self-talk, because artists talk to themselves all the time. Yeah, some people don't admit it, but we do. Okay, I'm looking at shape. Do you see this shape here? Ooh, there's a leg that comes down. So I'm looking at that shape right here, right? And there's another shape here. Okay, so this wrist is straight across from that hip, right about here, right? If I look in relationship down, yeah, right about here. So I'm looking at, okay, how wide is this? And since this is a one-to-one measurement, it's pretty easy. If you had a photograph, it'd be a little bit different because this would be smaller and you'd be looking at the relationship a little bit different. You'd be making this measurement and then you measure up here. Here I get to cheat a little bit because it's almost one-to-one. So if I were to look at this and measure it to a part of the face, like under the nose, I would know how wide that arm is. And it just kind of comes down. So I'm looking at the contour line. Those fancy words that make you sound smart. Some of us need all the help we can get to do that. Okay, how big is his hand? Ooh, a little bit smaller in the face. So if I go here, the hand is right about here, right? So if I block this hand out, right, halfway, it kind of goes like this, right? Kind of makes this triangle shape. I draw this in lightly. I know it's hard to see, but I draw it in lightly, and then I can map this out. Okay, how many fingers do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. And I want to be careful on how I map this. 1, 2. Kind of like that. We'll deal with that later. I'm not worried about that. Oop, the other hand is behind here somewhere, right? I know the thumb. Other finger. You only see one finger here. That's okay. Okay, feet. Ankle. Just off the line. Just across from the fingers. Right about here is the ankle. So I'm going to put the heel in. I'm guessing the foot is as big as the head. Yep. So look, make the measurement. Yep, I'm good as far as how big that foot is. So I'm going to round that off. I can put some of the detail in. Where is some of those straps? I know there's a strap up here probably. And get that contour line to work a little better. So it kind of curves up and then down. So I'm really focused on the contour lines here. And that goes up and then across. So she's got a little heel sort of there. Okay, where's this foot go? If I measure, find a relationship, usually on the face. Okay, from the brow to the head here. So if this is the brow, bottom of the foot should be somewhere here. And it kind of comes off this hand, and it's just a matter of drawing these contour lines. Contour lines. Key. It's important to be able to see all these contour lines that make up the figure. Okay, knee. We didn't do this knee. Okay, so we kind of have the figure mapped out. Where is this knee? Boy, this is way over here. So if I measure, how should I measure this? I could measure from here to, from the edge of the hand here over. Relationship, forward to the brow, hand, and that gives me the knee. The thickness of the leg, how thick is that? About as a little thicker than the hand. So if I make it just a little thicker than the hand, so that tells me, and so I'm just making little marks. This is much thinner. How much thinner? Oh, about as wide as the wrist. If I have the wrist right. If I do not have that wrist right, I'm in trouble. In general, you always want to measure using facial features in the head. That way, if you use one source, you're not going to mess it up in case you made this incorrect. You know, and so now I'm looking at, I have the different parts. I want to create this contour line. Now I can get this wrong. Sometimes I get that wrong. Okay. Ooh, where does this arm go? It's just kind of goes right above the wrist here. And this, there's a thumb here. Oops, I didn't put the thumb in. Where is that thumb? So I'm always emphasizing the joints. So I want this joint, I want this joint on that thumb. And that tells me right about, so that's going to be right about here. Yep, make that a little longer. Woohoo! Okay, so we have the finger mapped out. We can do a little more detail on the fingers. Like, I think this line is going to be over further. This line is going to be over further. Where are those fingers? That looks about right. Looks like this finger sticks above that one. This finger's well, isn't that funny? That finger's a little bit shorter. Let's make that a little wider. And then, what did I do wrong here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. Oops. That happens sometimes. That's why I always count. I've got too many fingers. Yeah, pretty funny, I know. But it happens. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know this finger's kind of over here. So let's make this finger wider. We'll make this one a little wider. And yeah, you know, if it's not quite right, move it. Not a big deal. Okay. So I'm moving that finger over. Okay, just make sure. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's way too fat. No chubby fingers. Okay. So this one needs to be a little wider. Ah, we're getting it. Okay, so the first joint happens right about here, right? The second joint is somewhere in here. I want to keep that in mind as I'm developing these. And this finger's too big. This is from the hand behind. How's that look? Little better. Sometimes you have to fool around with those fingers. Sometimes you have to move them. Sometimes you have to adjust them. Hands are hard. That's why we spent a couple of weeks just working on hands. But once you get the feel of hands, get it? Feel? Once you get the feel of hands, it becomes much easier. Where is that joint? Somewhere here, right? It's right at that halfway point. So we know the measurements of these fingers, right? From here to here, same distance from here to here. On the wrist, right? From here to here. From here to here, same distance from here to here. It works. And yeah, some of the fingers are a little longer, but overall, we're talking about this joint, these joints here, and then we break it up. So whenever you look at a hand, this distance from here to here is same distance from here to here. the distance from here to here is the same distance from here to here. How about that? Isn't that cool? Doesn't that work out spiffy? Okay, so I want to double check. I want these joint angles to be right. Okay, I'm going to exaggerate that joint right here a little more on that thumb that's behind. And I'm getting a little messy here, so I'm just going to clean up a few of these lines. Okay, so dress. Okay, let's work. Oh, we don't have this knee. I forgot a knee. How did we do that? Okay, so this knee is between these two armpits, the top of that knee, right? Is somewhere here. Where is it? It's below the ear, the top of that knee. Right below that ear. And then comes down this way. Make that a little longer. There. Do we have that right? No, this curve could be. So it kind of curves right here. So make little adjustments. You know, we have some of these curves could be a little better. That contour line, remember contour, outside line, okay? And then we can add some of the clothing in here. Goes up, curves. So I'm looking at all these contour lines, just like when we did the upside down drawing. We're just looking at the contour lines or the shapes. Always talk to yourself saying contour line shapes, not shoulder, not dress, not, you know, you don't want your mind to make up what you think a dress looks like. You want to train your eye to look at what you're really seeing here and get the contour line to work for you. Okay, so, and then I want to put in some of these shadow shapes. You know, where is that shadows? Ooh, I don't have this contour line here. Right from right here to here. Yeah, so I'm seeing parts that I forgot. I know there's a shadow shape here. I know there's a little square thing that happens here. All these dots here we'll get rid of eventually. I know there's a curve here. So essentially, oops, don't have this in here. Where is this? That line here. Something like that. Oh, and we don't have parts of the dress, right? So we look at the overall shape of the dress. And I'm just going to put these in white because we are going to use white on this. We're not going to use black over the whole thing. Okay, so to see the values now, we've got everything kind of mapped out. Well, you know, we don't have this shadow here. We don't have this shadow here. And you'll see these shadows when I put this up. Okay, so we'll put this up. You want to see the values now. Now, whenever you're working value on a figure, you want to start out slow and build your values. You're not going to get your darks right away, especially when you're working on the face, because that can be a problem. Okay, so we have something that has more of a value study. We kind of have the figure mapped out. You know, that nose might be a little big, but that's okay. I'm not worried about if it's just perfect yet. We'll deal with that as we go. So as I look at these parts, I want to start, oh, and she's got a little dress thing going here, a little coming up. So this is much more detailed. This is using pen, and I used white gel pen for the highlights. Here we're using charcoal, which works a little bit different, but it's very similar, and we'll use a white Conti crayon. Okay, and there's a little shadow on the face here, and I'm just going to map those out real lightly. Sometimes if you map these things out ahead of time, It just makes it easier putting in values, because you do not want to put a shadow where there's a highlight. No, no, no. No shadows where there are highlights. So you're going to have to concentrate when you do this. You can't just start putting in value willy-nilly. No willy-nilly. You're going to really have to concentrate on the shapes that you see. Oops, and there's a shape here, right? So I'm just very lightly mapping out some of these shapes. And there's more shapes down here. We'll deal with those as we get to it. Now, when you're dealing with a face, you want to build your values slowly. Some of you guys that have gorilla arms, you know, just slowly. Take it easy. You get too dark too fast, so you're just taking your charcoal and you're just tickling the paper, remember? Tickling the paper, and we're working on these values. Now we can get rid of some of these lines we got going here, because they're going to be distracting later on. We don't want them to be distracting. As I'm adding values to this face, I don't want these lines to interfere. See, I've got some of these, because I've got a lot of lines here, and I have them dark so you can see them. Okay? Normally when you do this very lightly to make these marks. So now I'm just building up my values very slowly. We'll fast forward through this in a second. See how I did this very slow? I'm looking at this shape. What shape? So I'm always talking to myself. I'm saying, okay, how does that shape curve? How does that line curve? Okay? Ooh, I know there's a shadow here, right? So I'm going to add a shadow here. Highlight here. Don't put a shadow there. But a shadow here. I know there's kind of a line here. So I'm slowly building up these values. Very lightly building these up. Oh, there's a bit of a shadow here. Very light. Especially when you're dealing. I'm going to put that eyeball in there. There, that helps that a lot. Especially when you're dealing around all these face. Generally, you want the face gentle, smooth, easygoing. You know, some of you guys can handle going dark really quick. But as for a new person, or even an old person, I would suggest starting out light. Watch these. Ooh, I don't like the shape of this. So this is where I'm seeing little adjustments I need to make. As I go around, I don't like the shape of that. So I'm changing some of these shapes. Right? So I'm just very carefully making adjustments. Now I want a whole value range, just like when first day of class we did the value scale, the range of value. We want to go from dark to light, but right now I'm just working on light values or just a little less than light values. What's the shape of that ear, that hole in the ear? You know, I don't know. It's probably called something. I don't know it. And I don't have the shape of that ear well. Oh, and she's got all this fun stuff happening out here. And I want to try to draw some of those shapes of all that fun stuff. Fun stuff is always good to add, you know. So we'll just call it fun stuff. You know, it's ribbons, whatever, you know, feathers. Always makes for a more interesting drawing. Okay, the curve of the hair is going to go back this way. So I want to kind of map this out. Do you see all the shapes I have here? Very fine, small shapes. And then it curves this way. What is this? It's a sphere, right? Ooh, okay, I know how to do a sphere. We've been doing that from day one, right? We're looking at some the highlight shapes and shadow shapes. And all these lines are going to go back kind of to one point where that ponytail is behind that ribbon, or bun, or whatever is back there. Okay, let's get this to sit still. So, let's, so I have some value on the face. I'll come back to this. You have to develop, you have to let your drawing develop. You can't say, oh, I don't have this right, it doesn't look right. You don't have the rest of it on there. Don't beat yourself up if you don't have all these other values. Okay, the shape kind of goes down here, and then it gets thinner, right by this elbow, wherever that elbow is. That looks a little wide, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay. So I'm just laying some of these values down. I'm not getting as dark as what I need to be yet. I'm just slowly building these up. And however you do cross-hatching, it just depends on developing that. Okay, I can get a little darker there. Get a little darker here. So I'm just working these values. Trying to get them all to work. It's that curve that, I don't really have a line here. It's more of a shadow shape. Okay, so I'm going to make a shadow shape here under that ear rather than a line. There is a line here, right there. And so I'm just working the values. Work those values, guys. You can do this. I'm not worried about that dot. It's going to disappear in my values. Alright. I know there's a value that goes down here, down the arm. And then kind of crosses. So I'm looking at the value and value shape. Now I'm asking myself about the line, value, and shape. So value is added into my positive self-talk. And if I keep talking about line and shape, that's going to help me focus on what I need to focus on here. And what is that? Line, shape, and value. What shape is this shadow? How does that curve around? Okay, so I can outline it, but I can also do it by just adding it in here to get it to work. What shape do I see? So I'm just laying these in real quick here, right? I know there's a shadow here. The shadow goes up this way. Notice how my lines help describe sometimes the shape of the form. So I'm trying to get the feeling of it being three-dimensional. Where is, I have a little highlight here, I want to save that. I don't want to lose that highlight because that's going to be important later when I start doing my white Conti crayon. Ooh, that's looking pretty good. And there's a bit of a shadow here. It's kind of a triangle shape. So on clothing and stuff especially, it's important to really look at the shape of the shadow and highlight. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll go back in and re-emphasize some of these joints, because you'll lose some of the outside line contour, but some of these I want to keep. Okay, so this face could be a little darker here. now that I have some of these other values in, I can judge at how this face is going. Ooh, there's a lot more values on that ear, right? It's not that white, not that light value. And this hair is going to be much darker. So I'm still trying to get the shape in that hair, right? Because it's kind of a little braid that's happening in here. I really like how that looks. Obviously, because I drew it in that one too. When you looked at the original picture, you didn't see a lot of that stuff. So a lot of this is made up a little bit. And that's okay. And that helps create texture in a drawing, and you want to do that. You want to help create that texture. Now I can go all across this and do a value over the shapes, but the shapes are still there. Isn't that cool? So I'm just doing a little value over all those shapes to help me get in that ballpark quicker. Okay, so this could be a little darker. So I'm just going through and working my way around the drawing, keep working these shapes. I see, oh, I can bring this down a little darker here. I see reflected light coming in here. Ooh, I did draw this. Ooh, I like this really dark shape. It curves here, right? This is where this lower leg meets right here, and I didn't put that in. Where's that lower leg? Right here. Uh-oh, look at that. I put a shadow where a highlight should go. Don't do that. Sometimes it happens. That's okay. There we go. So I'm working it, okay? I'm working all these values. Now, and I would continue working this until I was a little more developed. But now, we are going to try a little white Conte crayon. Isn't this great? I like Conte crayon a little bit better than white charcoal. White charcoal tends to dust off a little bit. Conte crayon has a little bit of wax mixed into it, and it helps it stick. But watch what I'm going to do. So I'm going to use this white to create these highlights here. And we have this dress sticking up. So I'm going to do a little drawing. You see some of these little frill things sticking up. And this is going to be fun. Right? I know I'm going to add some of this. Some of this. So I could add value here. Now you add value the same way you do with charcoal, except for you're starting out the farther apart your cross-hatching is, the darker the value, the closer it is, the lighter the value. So it's kind of opposite of charcoal a little bit. And that shoulders can be bright. Look at this face. So I have some of these values in the face. Now, one thing I could do here is I can lose this black outside line contour. Watch. So if I lose this black outside line contour and use white for the contour line, ooh, isn't that cool? Where's the highlight? Okay, it starts here, comes across on the nose, oops, goes up. I'm looking at shape again. Oh, Mr. L, you keep talking about shape. Yep, I'm talking about shape. What shape do I see here? It kind of comes up, ooh, and then the forehead comes over. So I'm looking at all of these shapes. And there's highlight on the face here. I'm really pushing this. What shape do I see? So it's a little brighter towards by the nose here, and then it gets a little lighter as it comes across. Might have that eye a little big on this one, but that's okay. See if we can make that eye a little smaller. There, yeah, that helps.